help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. In this video, I found an unfamiliar key in my wife's purse, and it didn't belong to our house. That key led me straight to her office, but what I uncovered there was something I never saw coming. Mark hadn't planned to look through Anna's purse. It was one of those random moments. She was in the shower, her phone had buzzed, and when he reached for it to turn off the sound, his hand brushed against something cold and metallic. He pulled it out slowly. A sleek black key with a silver tag that read L for storage. He stared at it, confused. Anna worked in human resources. There was absolutely no reason she should have a key labeled for a floor that, according to her, was only used for company servers and tech stuff. He turned the key over in his hand again. Something about it felt off. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her and humming to herself, he casually asked, "Hey, do you have a locker or something on the lower levels at work?" She froze for half a second, just half a second. But it was long enough. Then she smiled and said, "Oh, that old thing? I think it's from my intern days. Haven't used it in years." Mark didn't press further, but he slipped the key back where he found it and made a silent decision. Tomorrow, he'd stop by her office building, just to see, not because he didn't trust her, but because something didn't add up. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that shiny key, turning in a mysterious door, revealing something he couldn't name, but could feel. Something was hiding behind that door, and he wasn't sure he wanted to know what it was. What would you do if you found a key in your partner's bag? And every part of your gut screamed, "They're lying." Don't stop now. What Mark discovers next will make your heart race, because nothing is as simple as it seems. Coming up next, in the following chapter. The next morning, Mark waited until Anna left for work. She kissed him on the cheek like always, acting like everything was fine, but he noticed her phone never left her hand, and her eyes lingered on her bag just a second too long. As soon as the door closed behind her, he grabbed the key and his car keys and drove straight to her office building. The security guard at the front desk didn't recognize him, but Mark had been there before. Anna had shown him around on a Saturday once. He smiled confidently and walked past the turnstiles, acting like he belonged. The elevator ride down to level 4 felt like an eternity. The building's lights dimmed slightly as he descended, and when the doors finally opened, a cold draft rushed out. The hallway was narrow, industrial.
But walls?
No signs, only numbered storage rooms like a hotel basement, room L4-12, L4-13, and finally, L4-14. His hands were shaking as he pulled the key from his pocket and slid it into the lock. Clicked. The door creaked open. Inside, there was no storage.
No boxes.
No tech equipment. There was a couch, a small table, a wine bottle, and 2 empty glasses. His breath caught. On the table lay a silk scarf. Anna's scarf, the exact same one he'd gifted her for their anniversary. He picked it up slowly, his heart pounding in his ears, and then he heard it. Voices, approaching. A woman's laugh. Anna's laugh. Mark panicked, shoved the scarf into his coat pocket, and ducked into the dark corner behind a utility rack. He couldn't believe what he was doing, but he had to see. The door opened again. Anna stepped inside, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was a tall man in a navy suit, someone Mark had never seen before. Anna turned to the man and said, "We have about an hour before I need to be back upstairs." The man smiled. "I'll make it worth it." And then she kissed him. Mark's entire world collapsed in a single brutal second. What do you do when the person you trusted the most uses the exact key to unlock your worst nightmare? You won't believe what Mark does next. Keep watching, because in the following chapter, everything changes. Mark didn't move for nearly 15 minutes after the door closed again. His body was frozen, his breath shallow, his mind replaying the kiss like a looped nightmare. He wanted to burst out of the shadows, scream, confront Anna and the mystery man. But something held him back, something colder than rage. It was clarity. He had just witnessed the kind of betrayal that couldn't be explained away with lies or tears. Now he needed proof, not just for himself, but for what came next. Mark waited until he was sure they were gone. Then he stepped into the center of the room again, looking around more carefully this time. Hidden in plain sight, beneath the wine table, was a small black notebook. He opened it. Inside were cryptic notes, times, initials. Some of them matched Anna's schedule. One line read, lunch 14:30, A&M, storage key, A&M. Anna and Mike? Mark remembered Mike, Anna's new project manager, slick charming, and way too comfortable standing too close to her at the last company dinner. Mark took photos of the pages. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but his gut already knew. It was Mike, and then his phone buzzed. It was a message from Anna. Hey babe, long day. Going to stay at the office late. Don't wait up, love you. Mark stared at the screen, the lie sitting there in black and white. She didn't know he had seen her. She had no idea he had the key, or the notebook, but he wasn't going to confront her just yet, because now Mark had a plan. He was going to expose the truth in a way she couldn't deny, and he knew exactly who could help him. But first, he needed to find Mike's weakness. What Mark does next will flip everything upside down, and it starts with a visit Anna never saw coming. Keep watching, because the next chapter will change how you see every character in this story. Mark spent the rest of that night staring at the message on his phone, feeling like he was floating outside of his own body. The image of Anna's lips on Mike's wouldn't leave his mind. No matter how hard he tried to focus on his plan, he barely slept, and when the sun rose, he had already made a decision. If Anna was going to lie to his face, he would pretend to believe her, at least for now. He made her coffee the next morning like usual, kissed her on the cheek, asked her about work. She didn't flinch once. That was the scariest part. She lied like she breathed. Effortlessly, she told him she had a full day of meetings and probably wouldn't be home until late. Mark smiled and nodded, already knowing her schedule better than she thought. He had memorized the notebook. After she left, he waited 10 minutes before grabbing his keys and heading out the door. He wasn't going to work. He was going to find out what Anna and Mike were really doing after 6 p.m. But he needed help. That's when he called Julia, his younger sister and a cybersecurity analyst. She'd always had a talent for getting into things people wanted to keep private. And most importantly, she hated liars. Mark met her at a quiet cafe on the other side of town. He showed her the photos from the notebook. Julia's eyes narrowed when she read the A&M entries and the reference to the storage room. "This isn't just a fling," she muttered. "This looks organized." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, heart thudding. Julia leaned in, lowering her voice. "It's not just romantic, it's scheduled, strategic. Almost like they're planning something." That was the first moment Mark realized this might be bigger than cheating. This might be betrayal in every possible sense. Julia promised to dig into Mike's background and any activity on Anna's work devices. Meanwhile, Mark decided he needed to see the storage room. He remembered where the key was kept, from an office tour Anna gave him months ago. At 4:40 p.m. He drove straight to the building. He waited until employees began clearing out, then slipped inside with Julia's spare keycard she had cloned for him. His pulse hammered in his chest as he reached the storage room. Heart racing, with trembling hands, he unlocked the door. Inside was a small table, 2 chairs, and a folder. The label read, Phase 2, Proposal Outline. Mark opened it. There were printed emails between Anna and Mike, financial reports, documents about a side startup, and then a bank transfer receipt, $10,000, from Anna's personal account to a shell company under Mike's name. Mark felt the ground tilt beneath him. She wasn't just cheating, she was funding something behind his back. But what were they building? And why keep it secret? As Mark stood there, paralyzed, the hallway light flicked on. Footsteps. Someone was coming toward the storage room. Keep watching, because in the next chapter, the person who opens that door is the last one Mark ever expected to see. Mark didn't breathe. The footsteps were getting closer. Each step echoed through the corridor like a countdown. Then the doorknob turned slowly. Mark backed into the shadows, clutching the folder against his chest. The door creaked open. It wasn't Anna. It wasn't Mike. It was Rachel, Anna's assistant. Mark froze. She stepped inside, her expression calm, as if she had expected to find someone. Her eyes met his, and instead of surprise, there was something else, disappointment. "I figured you'd come snooping eventually," she said flatly. Mark blinked. "What do you mean? What the hell is going on here, Rachel?" She sighed and closed the door behind her. Then she locked it. "Mike didn't come up with this idea," she said. "Anna didn't either. I did." Mark's mind reeled. Rachel, the quiet, soft-spoken assistant who always stayed in the background? Rachel walked past him and picked up the open folder from the desk. "I'm the one who started the shell company. Mike's just a face. Anna. She's the one who sold you out." The words hit Mark like a punch to the chest. "She told me she was trying to protect me," he said, barely whispering. Rachel looked at him with a mix of pity and cold resolve. "She was protecting you from the truth." Mark couldn't process it. His wife had been lying, but now it wasn't just a lie. It was a whole structure of deceit built with others. "How long?" he asked. "Over a year," Rachel answered. "Since you got that promotion and Anna didn't. Since she started feeling like she was just your shadow." Mark clenched his fists. "All this for revenge?" Rachel smirked.
No.
"For freedom, for power. Anna didn't want to be your wife anymore. She wanted to be your competitor." Mark's knees almost buckled. He had never seen this coming. Not from Anna, and definitely not from Rachel. "Why are you telling me this?" he finally asked. Rachel tilted her head. "Because you're in the way now, and we can't have that." Suddenly, Mark's phone buzzed. He looked down. A message from Julia. "Get out. Now. I know what they're planning, you're not safe." Before Mark could move, Rachel stepped forward and whispered, "You should have stayed blind, Mark." You won't believe what Mark discovers next. Keep watching, because in the next chapter, his entire world gets flipped upside down. Mark didn't wait to process Rachel's last words. He bolted from the office, heart pounding, slipping past a startled janitor and ignoring the confused stares from the night staff. Every part of his body screamed for him to run faster, but his mind was spiraling. He had trusted Anna. He had doubted his instincts. And now it was clear. He wasn't just betrayed. He was being targeted. He jumped into his car and sped toward Julia's apartment, the only person left he could trust. His fingers trembled as he dialed her number. No answer. He called again. Still no response. Was he already too late? The phone buzzed just as he was about to try a third time. A text appeared. "They're watching me meet at parking lot behind City Plaza. Come alone." Mark pulled a hard left, nearly colliding with a delivery van. His thoughts raced. What the hell was going on? City Plaza was 15 minutes away. During that drive, Mark mentally ran through every conversation, every odd moment between Anna and Rachel, the late nights, the whispered calls, the way Anna always deflected when he asked about work. He realized something he hadn't before. It wasn't just about a love affair or jealousy. This was business. High stakes, dirty, calculated business. And he was caught in the middle of it. When he arrived at the City Plaza lot, it was dark. A few scattered cars, a flickering light, and Julia, standing near a black sedan. Mark stepped out slowly. "Julia," he whispered, moving toward her. She turned, fear etched across her face. "Mark, we don't have much time. What is happening? Why is Rachel involved? Why is Anna?" "Shoo," Julia cut him off. "They're setting you up for fraud. The money transfers from that fake company, they're under your name. Rachel used your credentials. Mike helped launder it. And Anna gave them access." Mark's stomach dropped. He could barely stand. "You're telling me I'm going to prison for something I didn't even do?" He choked out. Julia nodded slowly. "Unless we can get proof before they wipe everything." Mark looked down at his shaking hands. "They were going to let me take the fall. All of them." Julia stepped closer. "You need to do something you won't want to. You need to go back to Anna. Pretend you don't know anything. Play along." Mark stared at her. "Why?" "Because Rachel thinks you're out. But if we can bait them into thinking you're still clueless, we might have a chance." Mark exhaled, shoulders heavy, soul crushed. He never imagined he'd have to lie to the woman who had already destroyed him. But there was no other way out, and just as he turned to leave, Julia added, "Oh, and Mark, there's something else. There's someone else involved. Someone close." Mark froze. "Closer than Anna?" Before he could ask, Julia whispered, "You'll know when the time comes. Just don't trust anyone. Not even me." Everything is about to collapse. Keep watching, because in the next chapter, Mark steps back into a house full of lies. And one of them is fatal. Mark stepped back into the apartment just after midnight. The lights were off. Anna was sitting on the couch, a glass of wine in her hand, her face lit by the glow of her phone. She didn't look up. "Long night?" she asked casually, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't sold him out. Mark swallowed the lump in his throat and forced a smile. "Yeah. Meeting ran long. Then I grabbed some air." He walked toward the kitchen, trying to keep his voice steady. His limbs relaxed. He could feel her eyes trailing him, testing for cracks, testing for truth. Inside, he was screaming. He poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the sink. He had to play this right. Julia had been clear. Act like nothing is wrong. Buy time. Gather proof. Anna joined him in the kitchen, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. "You've been distant lately," she whispered. "You sure everything's okay at work?" That sentence stung. She was baiting him, seeing how much he knew. He turned, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah, just a lot of pressure. The company's expanding. You know how it is." She looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, but too calm, too rehearsed. "Well," she said softly, "I'm here if you need anything." Then she kissed him, the kind of kiss that should have meant something, but it was empty, mechanical, and now he knew why. The next morning, Mark waited until Anna left for work. Then he grabbed his laptop and opened an encrypted folder Julia had sent the password for. Inside were logs, emails, transfer confirmations, and photos. Photos of Anna in the same hotel Rachel had mentioned. Photos of her and Mike. But there was one more name attached to the files. Daniel. Mark froze. Daniel was his boss, the man who had first introduced him to Anna. Back when they were just friends, the man who had promoted him, mentored him, trusted him. Mark scrolled down and saw a message Julia had left. Daniel funded the whole thing. Anna was the incentive. Rachel was the cleaner. And you were the fall guy. Mark dropped the mouse. He wasn't just betrayed. He was orchestrated. As he sat in the silence of their home, betrayal crawling across the walls like shadows, he heard a knock on the door. It was Daniel, smiling, holding coffee. "You and I need to talk," Daniel said, stepping inside before Mark could answer. "Something's about to break. And it's not just Mark. Keep watching. In the next chapter, truths are exchanged, but not all of them are meant to be survived." Mark stood frozen in the doorway as Daniel casually walked into the apartment, placing the 2 cups of coffee on the kitchen counter like nothing was wrong. Daniel's voice was calm, even friendly. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. Mark's knuckles tightened around the edge of the countertop. He wasn't sure if he should punch him, scream at him, or just demand answers, but the betrayal ran too deep. Too many names, too many lies. Daniel leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching Mark like a father would study a son about to make a mistake. "You're not stupid, Mark," he said. "You've probably pieced together some of it by now, but I'm here to give you the full story." Mark laughed bitterly. "You're sleeping with my wife. What more is there to know?" Daniel shook his head. "You think this is about Anna? Anna was just a tool, collateral." Mark narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Daniel's tone changed, lower, colder. "You were never supposed to get promoted. You were too smart, too curious. The board didn't like that." Mark stepped back, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. Daniel continued, walking toward the living room. "They asked me to keep an eye on you, to control you. Anna was a perfect candidate. You trusted her. She had access. She distracted you." Mark felt like the walls were closing in. "You destroyed my life just to control me?" he said through gritted teeth. Daniel smiled slightly. "No, to protect the company. You were about to expose something bigger than either of us." Mark froze. "What do you mean?" Daniel turned toward the hallway, then paused. There are records on your laptop you haven't opened yet. Financial trails, illegal transfers. You were about to stumble into them. We couldn't let that happen. Suddenly, Mark's phone buzzed. A message from Julia. Check the drive labeled Project Echo. Do it now, and don't let Daniel see you. Mark's eyes flicked to Daniel, who was staring at a photo of him and Anna from their wedding. The silence between them pulsed like a ticking bomb, and then Daniel spoke again. But now, I've come to offer you a choice. He turned back to Mark, eyes unreadable. You disappear quietly, take a severance, start over. Mark didn't answer, because deep inside he already knew. There was no deal, not anymore. There was only one path forward, and it wasn't going to be quiet. And what Mark finds in Project Echo will shatter everything. Keep watching. In the next chapter, secrets explode, loyalties are tested, and one decision could end it all. Mark locked himself in his home office and opened the hidden folder Julia mentioned. Project Echo. His fingers trembled as he clicked through encrypted files. The folder buried deep beneath layers of financial reports and meaningless paperwork. What he found made his stomach churn. The documents showed a secret fund siphoning money from pension accounts of thousands of employees, funneling it through shell companies in the Caymans, then back into private bonuses for executives. And Anna's name was right there, listed as a signatory on multiple transfers. Mark's blood ran cold. She wasn't just used. She participated. He found recordings, too. One was of Anna on a video call, laughing with Daniel and a man he didn't recognize. The third man said something that made Mark stop breathing. As long as he doesn't look into Echo, we're golden. And if he does, well, we've got Anna for that. So they knew. They had planned everything, even his reaction. He slammed his laptop shut, pacing the room like a man on fire. Julia had risked everything to show him this. And Anna, she wasn't innocent. But one question tortured his mind. Why would Anna betray him not only emotionally, but professionally, financially, legally? Had their entire marriage been a lie? His phone buzzed again. Another message from Julia. Meet me at the old train station, midnight. We're not safe anymore. Mark grabbed his keys. Everything was unraveling fast. But there was one final piece missing. Who was the third man in the video? And then it hit him. The voice. The cadence. It wasn't just some executive. It was someone higher. Someone he had dinner with last Thanksgiving. Anna's father, the chairman of the board. Get ready, because in the final chapter, Mark confronts the people who ruined his life, and the shocking truth about his wife will make your jaw drop. Don't go anywhere. It all ends in the next chapter. The old train station was abandoned, its rusted metal and shattered windows glowing faintly under the moonlight. Mark stood alone on the platform, heart pounding in his chest, gripping a flash drive with all the files from Project Echo. Midnight struck. A train didn't arrive, but Julia did, her coat fluttering in the wind, eyes sharp, holding a second phone. Without a word, she handed it to Mark. On the screen was a live feed. Anna sitting in a luxury hotel suite, sipping champagne with Daniel. They were celebrating, not hiding, celebrating. Mark watched in disbelief as Anna leaned into Daniel and said the words that crushed every last part of him. He never saw it coming. You were right. He's just predictable. Julia's voice broke the silence. They were using you to cover up the fund. Echo was just the beginning. They were going to pin it all on you. Mark didn't speak. He didn't scream. He just nodded. Then he opened his briefcase. Inside were printed files, marked copies, copies of copies, and something else. He handed Julia a sealed envelope. If anything happens to me, he said quietly, this goes straight to the press. Julia hesitated, then nodded. That's when headlights appeared. A sleek black car rolled up to the edge of the platform. The back door opened. Anna stepped out. She didn't look surprised to see him. She didn't look guilty, just annoyed. Mark, she said, folding her arms. This has gone too far. Mark stared at her, unable to recognize the woman he had once loved. But then, Daniel exited the car, and right behind him, Anna's father, the chairman, 3 silhouettes, 3 traitors, all staring him down like he was the one out of line. Mark took a deep breath. "You brought the whole circus," he muttered. Anna's father stepped forward. "This can end quietly," he said. "You disappear. We clean up. Everyone wins." But Mark smiled. A slow, bitter, victorious smile. "Too late," he said. He nodded at Julia, and right then, police sirens echoed in the distance. Red and blue lights broke the stillness of the night. Mark turned to Anna, voice low and steady. "It wasn't me who was predictable. It was all of you," as officers rushed onto the platform. Anna's smirk finally cracked. Daniel tried to run. He didn't make it far. Anna's father stood still, defeated. Mark looked at Julia. "Let's go," he said simply. As they walked away, Julia asked, "What now?" Mark paused, then answered, "Now, I rebuild, without her, without lies." And as they disappeared into the dark, a new day began. But viewers are still asking, would you have forgiven her? Would you have walked away? Or burned everything down? Let us know in the comments. This was the final chapter. Thanks for watching the whole story. If you want more shocking endings like this, don't forget to subscribe